Regarded by many as the best weapon in the game, insane damage. Fire is also one of the best types of damages in the game as well, and the Ash of War has a decent AoE and filthy range. Not content with that, well, the flipping thing heals you each time you use the Ash of War. We're not talking about small deep bits of healing, we're talking about huge healing anytime that the fire wave hits something. On top of that, the weapon heals you anytime you kill things aside from the healing of the base Ash of War as well. Even while you're fighting bosses, it doesn't really matter that you're not healing by killing things, because the Ash of War is always healing you just for the sake of it. You might think that there should be some kind of downside or trade-off or like something like dealing less damage or like just something, but no. If you use all of the boss that we'll discuss in this guide, you'll be able to deal insane amounts of damage, precisely 5k damage per swing, depending on resistances and the buffs that you have available at that time, but that's usually the media that you're going to have. And like I said, that can be done from really safe distances, because the wave travels 50 miles away from you, hitting everything that's in front of it. So let's talk about the stats. The most important thing, as always, is reaching the main hard cap for damage that the weapon has, in this case, Faith. What's interesting here is that this is a quality weapon that scales well with strength, dexterity, and faith, but most of the buffs that we are going to have with this build are fire based. That is increased by faith. The scaling of fire with the weapon is increased by faith, which increases the base fire damage on it. It is also considered a good weapon for higher levels of characters. In this case scenario though, we're sticking to 150. To just prioritize faith 80 ASAP. If you want to level up higher, consider strength and dexterity to increase the damage. For base, you need 22 strength and 15 dexterity just as a weapon requirement. Then keep your vigor in between 40 to 60, because 60 is the hard cap, 40 is the soft cap. We don't want to go beyond, so 50 I'd say that's a nice round number. Now mind and endurance. Enough endurance to be able to have a nice heavy armor that gives you 51 poise to bypass the enemy attacks. The weapon does have hyper armor with the Ash of War, but it is not nearly as good as many other weapons have, so you do actually want to have that 51 poise to not get staggered while you are casting the Ash of War. On top of it, the weapon has a blade hitbox detection on the Ash of War, meaning that some of the damage comes from the wave and the rest of the blade is going to deal the rest of the damage. So you do want to, more often than not, use it point blank shotgun in the face of the enemies so that you take advantage of all of the damage. You need poise for that. Finally, mind, which is not that important. Why is that? If we actually don't want to be spamming the Ash of War as a main means of damage, simple. Just carry 6 flasks of Cerulean Tears with you at all times. We don't really care to just have like 8 flasks, Crimson Flasks, to heal, because the weapon already heals you for an insane amount of health each time you use it. So it becomes kind of irrelevant to have that many healing flasks that allow you to carry more FP flasks for spamming your Ash of War as much as you can. Now the equipment and the armor, and really you can just use any thing that you would like to use. Just make sure, like I said, to always bypass that 51 poise armor threshold. I am using the Great Jaw Talisman because the weapon is actually kind of medium heavy. It weighs like 12 kilos, so you don't necessarily need a shield, but my mind just doesn't allow me not to have a shield as a backup. I am using the Banished Knight shield in here, but you can play around with this lot. You can also play around with the Earthree's favorite +2. That's something that you can add in here as well. And as for seal for incantations, we are going to have spells with builds, but you don't even have to upgrade the seal that you're using for incantations, because the buffs that we use for this build, they are percentage based, meaning you don't have to have spell power to get the full benefit from them. You can by all means cast very strong incantations, since you already have like that 80 faith, so you might as well, right? But in reality, there's no incantation out there that is going to output more DPS than the base weapon Ash of War already does, so I kind of find it irrelevant for you to be able to use incantations when you already have the overpowered weapon itself. So the Talismans. The Shadow of Alexander, 15% more damage with your skill. That's actually kind of nice. The Carrion Crest, Yes, we do have quite a lot of cerulean flasks out there, but less FP consumption, it's always nice. And as a matter of fact, we do have like that slot right in there, so might as well. The Fire Scorpion Charm is going to give you 12% more damage, and then, like I said, depending on the armor that you're using, depending on either you're using shield or not, the Graveyard Talisman or the R3 Favorite +2. The R3 Favorite +2, the benefit that it has is that it gives you more vigor and more endurance, so that's actually kind of nice. But if you do want to be using like heavier armor, the Great Jaw Talisman, it's a huge help. And if you manage to just get that 51 points and use something different, then this is a slot that you can be allocating something different as well. 3 spells we are going to be using with this build. Golden Bow gives you 15% physical damage and also gives you damage negation, which negates the damage negation or extra damage that you take from the Scorpion Charm. And then we have Flame grant me strength. This is very interesting. This is where I told you that we want to be point blank on the enemy, because Flame grant me strength gives you plus 20% more fire damage, but also more physical damage, 20 and 20. So if you're using the Weapon Ash of War wave to attack from a distance, you're only getting 20% extra fire damage from Flame grant me strength. However, if you use it as a shotgun point blank on the enemy, you're also dealing the blade hitbox to deal damage, adding that extra 20% physical damage. Meaning that if you use it this way, this single spell right here is giving you 40% more damage. And then finally we have Howl of Chivalry, which I'm a little bit of on defense to use this one. It's a little better to use it right here, because it is going to give you 30% more damage, but also you take 20% more damage, which is kind of irrelevant, you know, because you're still at the end of the day healing yourself. Just make sure that you don't heal yourself with those one-shotting bosses, especially since we are heading into the unknown, the shadow of the tree, and we do not know what is going to expect us out there. So you do have to be mindful about the damage that you take. Now the Crystal Tears, the main one, the one that you're always going to be using at all times without any excuse, the Flame Shouting Crack Tear. This is plus 20% more fire damage. Now the other one you can use at your leisure. So for example, you can be using Cerulean Hidden Tear if you do not want to use that much of FP when you're buffing your character. Then again, FP it's not an issue with this build because you have lots and lots of flasks. You can have like regen in your HP, but that's irrelevant as well because the weapon is always going to be healing you as well. Maybe Grimburst Crystal Tear. One very good option is, for example, the Dexterity not Crystal Tear and the Strength not Crystal Tear, because these guys right here are going to give you 10 points each, and that is going to add value to the scaling. Especially good with the Strength one, because the Strength one, if you two-hand the weapon, it's going to give you 50% more stats. So in reality, if you two-handed and you use a strength not Crystal Tear, that is going to be 15 extra strength. So yeah, that's something that you can play around with. This is to your heart content. You can change and swap around in here. Just make sure that you always have the Flame Shouting Crack Tear right here. And the overall damage, if you take a look at all of those numbers that we have right there, you manage to get all of your buffs right here. There's Shadow of Alexander, 15% more damage. Fire Scorpion Charm, 12% more damage. Fire Shroud Crack Tear, 20% more damage. Flame Grant Me Strength, 20 and 20. Physical and fire damage, so that's 40 just right there. Golden Bow, 15% more damage, and then finally Howl of Chivalry, that is 30% more damage. The main weapon on itself is going to be dealing just by itself without any kind of buffing. It deals as an Ash of War with the proper stat like 2 to 2.5k damage. When you completely buff it, since you do have that extra 130-ish%, depending on Howl of Chivalry or not, the weapon damage increases all the way to 5 to 6k in some instances whenever the enemy is not like resistant to fire and all of that kind of stuff. So it's just filthy damage, and it's just like overall one of the most round weapons in the game, and as a matter of fact, that is why it is regarded by a lot of people as the most broken weapon in the entirety of the game, because here you have range, you have the healing, you have damage, There's like nothing that this weapon doesn't cover for you. It's just nuts. It's just nuts how powerful this weapon is, and it baffles me how it has not been nerfed. Yes, it is a PvE game, but it just feels this is one of the weapons that it's just easy game, Elden Ring, and I love it. I mean, I'm in love with this weapon. I have used it in several playthroughs, and it's always a blast. This weapon should carry you without any kind of issues, without having to use these Cadutri fragments on Shadow of the Earth 3. This is a very, very good solid choice to carry into the DLC. Anyways, if you like the content, like and never super appreciate it, and also there you gorgeous and beautiful person, you're in the gorgeous and beautiful person. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, join the Discord, so that we can play Elden Ring together, Shadow of the Earth 3. I'll see you guys in the lands between, on the Shadowlands. Have a lovely, lovely day and goodbye.